Hi guys, so the Brexit Opportunities Minister, Jacob Rees-Mogg, was amongst friends at the European Scrutiny Committee. Now just a quick question before we continue. Why is there a European Scrutiny Committee? Hasn't Britain left the EU? Does Bill Cash or whoever is the chair not understand that his meeting has zero impact on how the EU operates? Because the UK is now a rule taker when it used to be a rule maker. Anyway, back to the Right Honourable Gentleman from the 19th century. Mogg appeared at the committee to give evidence, if you can call it that. Evidence of benefits of leaving the EU were presented. Well, in fact, a problem of Brexit was presented. Have a listen to the question and then his answer.
Thank you. Minister, can you tell us how the government has gone about assessing the newfound legal and policy freedoms the UK has after Brexit?
Yes, it does require a new way of thinking, because previously departments would say, well, you can't do this because it's not allowable under EU law, or you've got to do this because it's required under EU law. Now none of that applies, and it's very refreshing in my view, because ministers and departments can simply think, is this a good thing to do? And there isn't this external restriction, so it allows much more innovative and broader policy thinking, and it removes the great naysayer. That is, even if it wasn't actually the case, people who didn't want to do something would say, are you sure that's allowable under EU law? It was a very good way of stopping innovation, stopping things happening, raising the European flag, making people get legal opinions to see whether they could do it or not. It's all gone. And now
This, I don't know how to react to this. This is Jacob Rees-Mogg basically saying that even if there were things that we could have done, people would question it, and that was a bad thing. So, really, I'm dumbfounded. I truly am, because how do you react to this? Jacob Rees-Mogg basically says here, there were rules that we had to follow because of EU law, and there are rules that we didn't have to follow because of EU law. And now that we're no longer a member of the European Union, a benefit is people will no longer have to question whether is this an EU law or not. And even if it's not, and him saying here, even if it wasn't at the time, it would somehow stifle innovation. This makes absolutely no sense. But let's continue.
now if a bill comes to Parliament, that is our law. And that's really exciting and democratic.
Minister, I would agree with you. Are you able to give us some examples of this innovative thinking, since we are now some way past the time at which this was possible?
We did the gene editing statutory instrument that has, I believe, now already come into force, which means that the gene editing of plants may be done. And that is a very significant change. It's not to be confused with genetic modification, but it means that things that may happen naturally can now be sped up. That was not possible under EU law.
Okay, can you present some evidence to support that case? That statement, that it wasn't possible? Because gene editing takes place in the European Union. Gene editing has, as he pointed out here, we're not talking about GMO, we're talking about gene editing. And gene editing does take place in the European Union. Now, I don't know what rule Jacob Rees-Mogg is talking about here, and unfortunately nobody knows because he doesn't specify.
Last year, when we thought we weren't going to have any turkeys delivered for Christmas, the Secretary of State for Transport made between 30 and 35 changes to the law to ease up the training and approvals and systems for lorry drivers, the majority of which, only just over about half, were retained EU law that we would not otherwise have been able to do. So these flexibilities have been coming in, but...
So he highlighted a problem that was caused by Brexit, and then he pointed to a solution, which he talked about easing rules for allowing HGV drivers to operate. Do you remember those, where they made the tests easier? So that's a Brexit benefit. So we had this problem that was caused by Brexit. Of course, he didn't point that out there, but there was a problem caused by Brexit, and we found a solution to it. There's a benefit of Brexit. This is insane. This is beyond grasping it for straws.
The best is yet to come. It would be wrong of me to preempt the Queen's speech. However, the Brexit Freedoms Bill will provide the mechanism for updating, changing, removing retained EU law in a way that will allow this to be much smoother and faster.
Certain laws are retained because they're useful. But for Jacob Rees-Mogg, he has to sell the public something. He has to say, look, we needed to leave the EU in order to take back some control or to write our own laws. But if certain laws are valuable, if they have merit, and remember, the UK used to be a member, okay, so for Brexiteers that's difficult to get their heads around, but the UK used to be a member, it used to be active, it used to be part of the decision-making process and the law-writing process. So a lot of the laws that the UK has retained since Brexit were actually written by UK politicians when they were in Brussels. That's why a lot of them have been retained, I should say. So Jacob Rees-Mogg here can't find an actual benefit, so he points to a problem caused by Brexit and then finds a solution, a workaround, more a workaround than a solution, and presents that as a benefit of Brexit. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. And I'm laughing because what a sorry state of affairs.